For 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom here. We're going to have the finest ballroom, I believe, anywhere in the world. It's going to cost right in the neighborhood of $300 million. It's been expanded and made absolutely. It'll be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world, I think. I think it'll be one of the most beautiful ballrooms, maybe the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world. I'm doing a ballroom now. I've been with the astronauts. I've been with contractors because we're trying to get the ballroom built. Just like we're ahead of schedule on the ballroom, in a much bigger way, we're ahead of schedule with Iran.
I mean, there's a piece of me that's like, pad the walls, take the phone, give him his effing ballroom, Ian. I mean, like we have never heard him talk. I mean, did you see all the words on the back of that piece of paper in the first clip? Like, there are meetings about the ballroom. There is an ability to focus on the ballroom. There is a message on the ballroom. There is a cognizance of the global presence of ballrooms. Imagine, like now do poverty, then do peace, then try NATO, and how about economic prosperity for the poor? I mean, I have never seen him. I've covered him every day, and they'll study my brain when I'm dead for 10 years. I have never seen him focus on anything like he's focused on the ballroom.
I think you hit on something as a former advisor to a president, which is free political advice for him, which is the ballroom is deeply unpopular. But if he made it a padded room, it might all of a sudden skyrocket in popularity. And look, I mean, you know, this funny stuff is actually quite serious. As we were talking about before the break, mockery is a really, really important and powerful political tool. There's a wonderful book by one of the organizers of the Serbian movement, Otpor, that toppled Slobodan Milosevic, Sergej Popovic. His book is called Blueprint for Revolution, and it's all about how mockery has been effectively used against these sort of autocratic leaders all over the world to great effect. And I think we've been seeing it here. If you think about the people in the inflatable dinosaur costumes who are out there protesting, you know, sort of ISIS atrocities, it makes it very hard for, you know, sort of militarized strongman forces to be feared and taken seriously when they're being mocked in that way. And I think, you know, that's the proper way to respond to some of this, as we're doing here. I couldn't help but notice when Trump was holding up those pictures of his golden arches, his big arch, of the scene in Spinal Tap, you know, when Christopher Guest and David St. Hubbins want a gigantic Stonehenge, but they can't tell how to write the word inches and feet properly. And so they end up with a giant Stonehenge that's only about, 12 inches tall. And I think that's what Trump is going to get, because as Ben Wittes of Lawfare, I think, unforgettably coined, Trump is malevolence tempered by incompetence. And so what he may end up getting in the long run of history is an arch that he's holding in his hands that's just about that big, that gets trampled by the marching feet of democracy from here ever after.
I mean, I want to associate with everything you've just said. And I mean, I think there's a political strategy in here, too, that isn't being realized or carried on. And I sort of joked yesterday that every Democrat should make that picture of Trump with this crumpled up picture of the ballroom their image. I mean, and then the rest of us can do the people who brought their democracy back from the brink in Hungary, or the people who are now again going to have to fight for voting rights in America because of the Supreme Court decision yesterday, or the people who are now doing in the private sector what the USAID used to do in our country's name to save the most vulnerable people in Africa and around the world. I mean, there is a seriousness in Trump's commitment to building a ballroom that we should not mistakenly treat it as a side thing. That is the focus of the President of the United States, with 13 American service members dead in a war that he began in Iran. And based on reporting, none of his cabinet thought it was a good idea. He sat across from another country's foreign leader. None of his cabinet has been able to articulate to Congress or the country the purpose for the war. The three things that are on the table based on Axios reporting don't point to a strategy either. One involves the nuclear program, one involves the Strait of Hormuz, and the other just involves bombing infrastructure. I mean, people should take the seriousness. He's now talked about the ballroom with more seriousness, more planning, more, things on paper waving around than he's talked about the war.
Yeah, well, I think Senator John Ossoff put up recently a really effective campaign ad that I think quite seriously makes the important point that what we are spending money on in this country under President Donald Trump is $25 billion on an ill-conceived war of choice in Iran, on this ballroom that either is being paid for by taxpayers, as we now learn, or else by sort of the corrupt contributions of people trying to, line the pockets of Trump and his family in some way. And what we are not spending money on is helping people afford medicine, helping people afford healthcare. In fact, we're allowing those benefits to be cut. This is a president who came to office promising that he would help people with the increasing cost of living and is doing nothing about the walls in which the American people need to live, and is doing everything about a gilded ballroom in which he wants to fet his billionaire partners and donors. And I think at the end of the day, that is the serious decision for the American people to make in November, which is whether that is a course they want to continue on, because that is the course that the Republican Party right now is abetting, or whether we want to change course and get back in the business of supporting the American people.
The other projects, if it's ballroom, for 500, it's, prosecuting your enemies for 200. And the obsession, the absolute obsession with manufacturing crimes to take before grand juries and one-sided presentations of something Jonathan Turley described as making up a crime in an op-ed yesterday, Tom Nichols. I mean, this is the whole poo-poo platter of authoritarian, sort of crack tin pot dictator. I don't know if it's fair to authoritarians to call this all authoritarian conduct, but certainly the full-fledged dictator that the three top generals warned about in the last term.
And the real worry here is that people have gotten used to it and they're not taking it seriously. We laugh at the ballroom, we laugh at the arch. The war in Iran and the ballroom are the same thing. They are both monuments to Donald Trump's vanity. We didn't go into Iran because there was a pressing national security need. The people around him you can see them, sweating bullets trying to explain why it was necessary. But in fact, Donald Trump thought he was going to be the great liberator and get another statue somewhere. The ballroom, the arch, the war. And I worry that too many people have said, well, it's not that important. It's just how it is. It seems like the only thing that's breaking through is that all of this craziness has raised the cost of living and gas prices. But the message needs to be that this is destructive, not only to your way of life, which, it is, and to your pocketbook and to your household, but that a deeply disturbed human, this is not normal.